There's usually two distinct possibilities to the lyrics of songs of this ilk and this era. One is that it's some sort of declaration of ennui, which really is not truly formed or realized. It's, oh, I'm pissed off with things and there's a reason, but I'm not quite sure. And it's probably you, and all that sort of usual student stuff, or Thatcher. They're the two possibilities, and only two. Right.
Hey everybody out there, welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy, that's John over there, and we do what we always do, which is listen to music after we share it and then discuss it thereafter. So John, you're going to be sharing something with me to go off and check out today. What will it be?
Okay, so I'm going to have you listen to a band called The June Brides.
The June Brides, okay. I can't think of anything in the recesses of my mind that would, suggest I've heard this band before. So, cool. What's the name of the track by the June Brides?
In the Rain.
In the Rain. It's a hell of a place to be. It's probably where you often find yourself when you're living over there, though, on the other side of the pond. I hear it's quite rainy over there. So, all right. Let me go off, give this thing a spinaroo, and I will try to keep dry. It sounds like on the second or third repetition of this melodic line that the guitar starts, it's something else is joining it there. And it sounds like a stringed instrument of some sort. I don't know if it's like a violin or like a fiddle or, a viola. I don't think it's a cello, though, because that's pretty high in register. But that's an interesting choice and not something that I expected. I'm going to play it again just so I can see if I'm right or if that's something completely different. Like my brain playing tricks on me here or something. I have to say, it makes me chuckle a little bit because we have these lyrics that kind of convey this existential impasse or crossroads, or at least this moment of reflection about, like, is this the real world? Is this all I can hope for? And then somehow we end up with ba 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 ba, and it's just very upbeat. Now, I know we've talked plenty of times about how music can convey one mood while the lyrical content is counterintuitive to that, and that's kind of interesting, and we've seen plenty of it. And I understand that the ba-ba-bas are kind of like a musical element, in their own right, but it's just the first time I've heard the vocalist inject this sort of jubilant feel with this ba-ba-ba kind of sound, or, anything akin to that, after just, talking about, this, is this all I can hope for? Type, inner dialogue or whatever that the narrator's going through. It's just interesting. It makes me laugh. But it sounds really great. I really love that the way the melodic line that was being played that started the song, and then how they added texture to it by bringing in whatever that stringed instrument is there. I'm sure John will get that straight for me. I'm sticking with violin or viola. But yeah, it sounds really good thus far. I'm seeing someone with either a violin or viola there, so that's kind of like helping me a bit. But there's this trumpet player, and I don't know if I've heard any horns or what's going on there. If I'm supposed to be, I'm listening to the song. I promise. I just don't hear the horns in the mix. I really love when he's starting to sing. There's like this added bit of friction, like texture that is being added. I don't know if that is from the one of those stringed instruments that I listed, or if that's from the guitar. But they're adding this bit of like itchy texture, kind of beneath the lyrics, and that kind of helps fill things out. And it sounds kind of interesting to me. It's pulling my attention, so I do like it. That's gotta be. I'm gonna pull this back because I'm gonna catch some of those lyrics, but that's gotta be that bow on string just sawing away, creating that texture that I was talking about earlier. And I really do like that. It's so simple, but it fills out the sound so well. And it's funny, like the simplicity of that is kind of akin to the simplicity of that surf rocky frenetic guitar motif that they played earlier, that then developed into the more main melodic through line that the song sort of began on. But that first part, that was just kind of like this errant housefly buzzing around and darting through the air. It was kind of like that, but darting around the soundscape. And it was simple, but it had a lot of like movement and friction to it. And now I think I'm drawing a parallel between that sound and what this violin or viola is doing in the background there as well during this part. So yeah, let me take that back. I really like how they had this. I don't know if I'm sure John likes it because it's a song he gave me, but this bridgy portion in it is really nice. This musical interlude or whatever John likes to call it instead of a bridge. It's good stuff. It's interesting. He's talking about going to the edge of the river. Whenever I hear that, John can straighten me out on the other side. But like whenever I hear down to the river, I don't know. I think of like either a baptism or something far more, lascivious in nature. Like Possum Kingdom from the Toadies, which we've done on this channel. And if you remember, then you know what I'm talking about. I don't know if it's either of those two, it's probably somewhere in the middle, having to do neither with like born again religious aspect or this, murderous kind of situation or scenario either. But it's just instantly that's where my head went. So let me hear what he says one more time. Pull it back a little bit more.
Gonna take a walk down to the edge of the river. I'm gonna free my soul, 'cause this is me again. Won't you come with me? Won't you take my hand? Won't you come down there all the way? Let's walk and talk. Because the time has come, stop being smug and true, to reach for those things you could never attain. Scream and cry in the night for you, for now, for life.
Whew, just by the skin of my teeth. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. There was enough of this like kind of semi-manic, frenetic energy throughout it. Great use of textures musically. I think mostly coming in the form of that violin, stroke, viola, whatever it is, and sometimes the guitar as well, which was great. I really loved the way they broke it down and let the rhythm section kind of carry it for a while. That bass is doing some really nice stuff, and there were some great fills on the drums as that kind of progressed, and then it blossomed into the band proper rejoined, all collectively coming together again and kind of carrying it from there. Yeah, this is interesting stuff. And another point of interest for me is this lyrical content. It's like, it almost has this pie in the sky jubilant kind of feel, but there's some very kind of like pointed questions and observations made throughout it, if I caught them correctly. So trying to like square that circle and make sense of it all is going to be something interesting that I'd like to discuss with John as well. But yeah, this is a great listen. I'd happily listen to this again. I like the tones in the guitar as well. They, for the most part, had this jangly indie pop kind of sound to them, but there was also that one part that was almost surfy garagey, with that really frenetic bit of guitar work, and in all of them were great examples of excellent use in guitar tone. So yeah, enjoyed this. Let's get back to John and chop it up.
Uptown Top Ranking is back. So you've had to listen to In the Rain by the June Brides. Tell us what you think.
There's a lot to think here. It was actually a really interesting listen. At first, it didn't really dawn on me some of the other things that were happening, and then I started to pick up on them, and I'm like, oh, there's some there's more to this than just the surface, and literally in this case, because some of those sounds were kind of like a little buried uh, amongst some of the other things that were going on musically. But go on, John.
That might be due to the exceptional quality of the production on this track.
that could lead to it for sure, for sure. It kicks off and is led by this very inviting tone of like indie jangle pop guitar melody that is over top this simple drum beat pattern, and it goes through it two repetitions of this jaunty little kind of melody, and then there's this added layer that comes in, and I at first was struck by what it might be, and I thought strings, because it had that kind of, I think I've said this before about strings, when they're, especially when they're done with rapidity, the bow, it adds this like a kind of like itchy sound to it. It's almost like friction, and I can pick up on that. Luckily later in the video it would suggest that there was in fact either a violin or a viola being played here, and you hear it more and more the moment you get an inkling. You start to look for it and you hear it more and more. So I thought that was one of the like the first kind of like, oh, isn't that an interesting little additive that I wouldn't have expected, particularly in this kind of subgenre of rock. And soon thereafter, our singer joins the mix as he contemplates, is this the real world? Is this all I can hope for? Is this the world outside in the rain? So while the music certainly, and I hope I got that right, I was, taking shots in the dark here, but the music has this upbeat, and it's somewhere between like hopeful and jubilant, this kind of sound. And our singer sounds more contemplative or pensive about the state of life. Also, while he was singing, that added bit of texture, musical texture, again, I think it's injected by that quick moving like bow on string action. I loved that sound. That was very infectious and added again a lovely bit of texture that maybe you wouldn't key in on at first, but if it wasn't there and you'd heard it before, you would notice its absence immediately. So I really loved that added touch. But perhaps to take the edge off of his otherwise existential ponderings, he injects these carefree sounding ba 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 ba's in there as well, which, you know, we've this made me chuckle a little bit given like the contrast of like the lyrical content. And I know we've talked about this so many times with music, struck by music versus mood conveyed by lyrics. But it's the first time I've ever heard the vocalist contradict that mood with these sort of like, I usually call them vowel vocalizations because they come in the form of oohs and ahs and e's, but this is clearly lent like the buzz. So it's this vocalization that's going on is just funny and upbeat, and it definitely kind of flies in the face of, as I mentioned earlier, this sort of existential impasse that our narrator is at. So he wraps up his impression of a singing sheep, and we get treated to another dose of that infectious melody on the guitar and the strings that introduced the track. The singer reemerges. This time, his lyrics seem to be pointed at someone specifically rather than the observational approach from earlier. He mentions this you and how they take him for granted as well as all he knows, leaving him with nothing. And you guessed it, it was in the rain. And of course, he drops more of those bleeding bahs after this line. But at the 123 mark, we get treated to the somewhat kind of surf slash garage type tone guitar line that's very frenetic, and it sort of darts and buzzes about like a housefly searching for an exit strategy. And I really enjoyed that bit. All the frenetic fun movement of that, and again the tone of that guitar is one that I really really love, on top of already really liking that sort of jangle stroke indie pop sound that it had earlier in the track. So they're checking a lot of boxes here with the tones and techniques on the guitar, so I really enjoyed that. This bit of guitar work then blossoms into that common melodic guitar line from earlier in the tune and continues for a bit, and it cuts out around the 150 mark, leaving the rhythm section to kind of press on with the bass rolling up and down the neck in this very jaunty jog with some excellently deployed, like kind of like gunshot fills on the drums. In a much cooler delivery, the singer slightly croons, "Oh, is this all I'm waiting for? Oh, there should be more." And he follows this up with what I believe are the opening lines from the song in this newly sort of adopted, subdued tone. But you can feel it lifting as he resolved on the last line, and the bars begin to unfold. And there appears this faint, jangly, scratchy bit of guitar work and some more of that violin or viola, whichever it is, just ripe with an added layer of texture that, blankets the soundscape as our singer deploys more of those bars. The main melodic line reemerges, and soon the singer begins delivering more vocals, singing about taking a walk down to the edge of the river and to free his soul. This line kind of conjures a few competing, divergent thoughts. Could he be alluding to some sort of baptism, or perhaps something more sinister? The song Possum Kingdom by the Toadies comes to mind. If you know, you know. Something more lascivious as he invites this individual who he just sort of badmouthed earlier in the song to join him. I assume it's the same individual. So and I'm probably on two very far ends of the spectrum, and what it actually is somewhere in the middle. And I hope, I implore you to, I hope that you have the meaning of these lyrics down, because I'd love to get some, like, clarity on that, because I thought they were really interesting. But perhaps both possibilities are quickly dispelled as he alludes to taking her by the hand and going for a walk, I think is what I heard him say. However, he does mention something about screaming and crying in the night for you and for life. So who knows at this point? As I mentioned earlier, I'm hopeful that you can take me to the river and unmuddy these waters. This part gives way to more of the frenetic guitar work before I absolutely love, and it quickly resolves on one note, and the song kind of comes to an end. So one thing I will observe, speaking of observations, this was one I made with my eyes while watching the video, though I tried to like not look at it too much, because I know both of us fall into that trap of, either getting caught in the silliness or the narrative of the video, which sometimes doesn't match the initial intent of the song, so you can go down the wrong path. But I thought I saw a trumpet player a couple times, and I'll be damned if I was able to really hear trumpet in this track. Now, I don't know if I could chalk it up to that production value you alluded to earlier, that I heard on display on this one listen, but it would seem like where the bop bop bahs existed, that could have been trumpet, and it would have been really great. They could have injected those pops. But you can, again, that's yet another thing you can iron out for me and tell me where they were and how I missed it, or what have you. But I saw horn and I said I don't hear horn. But I really enjoyed the energy of this tune, a lot of that guitar work and the tone throughout it. I also really appreciated the way they broke things down to just the rhythm section before building it back up. Now, this is a tried and true method we've heard 1,000 times in a lot of songs especially in this sort of similar genre. Or ones akin to it. So here's yet another example of it working out really, really well. I also found the lyrical content, as I mentioned before, really compelling, despite the lack of cocksure clarity on my part. So yeah, really good song, enjoyable listening experience. But I'd love for you to tell me more about the band and this song in particular, and perhaps the meaning behind it, and show me where those goddamn horns are, because I was looking for trumpet. So please tell me more, John.
Is that Andy? Yeah. This is classic indie pop from the 80s, British. Now, listening to a lot of it can be sometimes a little bit lightweight, but I think it really comes into its own in the summer, and we're in the middle of our drought over here, so I thought a bit of classic 80s indie pop.
Oh yeah, there's always room for that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to move mountains for it just to be a good listen.
It's interesting because the single version of this came out in '84, and then the EP version, so that one got there, came out in '86 because of moving record labels and reissuing and all that shit. Anyway, I'll get into it. The June Brides, English group, formed in London in 1983 by Phil Wilson and Simon Beasley, who were previously of a band, International Rescue. They were very much influenced by postcard label bands such as Joseph K, who spoke about postcard record label, and of punk era bands such as, there'd be no surprise to you, Buzzcocks, but also the Desperate Bicycles, which are a very interesting band, and the Television Personalities, which we did one show of.
Yeah.
So they are seen as vital pioneers of the UK indie pop scene, and their distinct mix of guitar pop with viola and trumpet formed a blueprint for many of the indie pop bands that would follow. So they're seen as real forerunners. The trumpet was probably in this song, but it's like really back in the mix. So only his grand would hear it.
The irony of a grand being able to decipher trumpet in that recording that we just listened to, it's not lost.
Nothing else. So personnel: Adrian Carter, bass; Chris Nynam, drums; Simon Beasley, guitar; Phil Wilson, guitar and vocals; Frank Sweeney, viola; and John Hunter, trumpet. So after they formed in '83, they first played live as a band they formed in June, and by August they were playing live, and started immediately attracting attention in the form of future Creation Records boss Alan McGee, who's propped up in a number of our stories. So he gave them several gigs at the legendary Living Room Club, which again is featured in other stories, and allowed them to build a kind of cult following in London. However, he reputedly decided not to sign the Dune Brides to his new label, Creation Records, because it would have been, in quotes, too obvious, whatever the hell that means. I mean, that's just nonsense. Anyway,
such a shit explanation.
so they managed to get some issues on the Pink label, it was called, in '84. So the first was In the Rain, which you heard, and then Every Conversation. And it saw them get quite a lot of attention. And those two songs we'll see them crop up time and time again on compilation albums regarding that sort of era, that side. Lyrics. Now, there's nowhere on Tinternet are the lyrics to the song. So I had to go through and decipher. It's fairly clear. There's a few bits where he mumbles.
Yeah.
I will say this. There's usually two distinct possibilities to the lyrics of songs of this ilk and this era. One is that it's some sort of declaration of ennui, which really is not truly formed or realized. It's, I'm pissed off for things and there's a reason, but I'm not quite sure. And it's probably you, and all that sort of usual student stuff, or Thatcher. They're the two possibilities, the only two. Right. So
this is a far cry away from, what was it, Dracula, Jesus and drugs, or whatever it was.
Times move, move on. But Thatcher, vampires, very, very close.
Yeah, I guess there's some Venn diagram shit happening between those two entities.
So the lyrics: is this the real world? Is this all I can hope for? Is this the world outside in the rain? Ba ba ba. Ba 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 ba, etc. You've taken for granted, you've taken all I own. You leave me with nothing in the rain. That does sound like Thatcher. Ba 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 ba. Then we have the guitar and the viola, and then we have that very 80s breakdown with the bass. I mean, there's a number of Smith songs that do it as well. It just sounds so great. And he goes, "Oh, is this all I'm waiting for?" And it's almost, you're right, he changes his voice and it's down, but it's crooned a bit, and it's really nice. Oh, there should be more.
Yeah, it's actually the part where I think his voice sounded the best, honestly.
Yeah. And then it's back in, is this the real world? Is this all I can hope for? Is this the world outside in the rain? Ba 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 ba. And then it goes into the sort of more frenetic bit. I'm going to take the world down to the edge of the river. I'm going to free my soul. Really sketchy here. So about this is me again or something like that. Won't you come with me? Won't you take my hand? Won't you come down there all the way? Let's walk and talk. Complicated stuff. Because the time has come for feeling smug and free. To reach for the things we can never attain. Scream and cry in the night for you, for now, and for life. Yeah, so interesting. I think it's a general sort of it's interesting that the imagery in the rain can mean a number of things, that you're in this sort of doldrums or downpour. It's just, but when he starts doing the ba ba ba, I was just thinking of singing in the rain as well. And people just splashing and enjoying themselves despite the fact it's miserable weather.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of that in terms of the sort of the sort of joy that's within the music itself. So it's that lovely contrast. And a lot of 80s bands were very, very happy to be miserable, as it were, and they took great pride and joy in it. So again, So a year later, the mini album There Are 8 Million Stories ... was released, and luck would have it, I have the kitty there. Another little great track. Yeah, really nice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 songs on it. Yeah, really cool. It was produced by John O'Neill of the band That Petrol Emotion, and it went straight to #1 in the UK indie chart. and it stayed at number one for a month, and it remained in the indie charts for 38 weeks. So pretty good feat there. The band also recorded a session for John Peel's show. I mean, who wouldn't at that time? Which was broadcast
Unless it
in
made too
November.
much sense, in which case he may have, changed his mind.
Yeah, so there you go. Classic Peel sessions. God, they must have made some money with all these. But yeah, really, really good stuff. 4 tracks there. That was broadcast in November '85. Disillusioned with the Pink record label, the band moved to Mark Riley. He was bass player in the Fall when he was younger, and then went into broadcasting. So his in tape label, and they did 2 further singles, No Place Like Home and This Town. There we go. There's No Place Like Home. Another classic sort of indie cover, badly photocopied, degraded. And again, another charming sort of picture of English summertime frivolity. And then in '86, they opened for the Smiths on their Irish tour dates. Morrissey was quoted as saying that they were his favourite band of 1985.
Wow.
The June Brides were asked to contribute to the Enemy's C86 compilation, but declined for fear of being pigeonholed. What a mistake, because that would have really earned them up some money and kept them sort of in the limelight, as it were. After losing confidence in Tape label, they approached Go Discs, who had offered them a deal the previous year. But with the band falling out of favour with the critics and some of their early fans, Go Discs were no longer interested. And so the band split in 1986, with Singer Wilson embarking on a solo career on the aforementioned Creation Records. So Alan McGee welcomed him in on his own in the end. And that was that, really. Their reputation and their legacy kind of grew over the years, and modern bands started covering their tracks. Manic Street Preachers featuring covers from them on their live sets. And then, seemingly out of the blue, the band were honoured in 2006 with a full tribute album, Still and Ravished, were released on the Irish label, this is all one word, Yes Boy Ice Cream Records, which feature cover by bands such as Manic Street Preachers, television personalities, The Tide, Jeffrey Lewis, and the Jasmine Minks. So it's a full album of bands doing covers of their songs, which is incredible, cool. Really. Seeing as they only released sort of a handful of records. I think there's only 1 record of theirs, 2 records of theirs I haven't got. Dave Eggers, the writer, and Everett True contributed liner notes for the album. And Dave Eggers also wrote an article in the UK newspaper, The Guardian, detailing his affection for the band. It's quite long, but I haven't got much more to say, so I'm going to read you bits of this article because it's well written. It's quite funny. So he starts, because life is, or it seems at times, ridiculously long, it allows for many improbable things to happen. One such thing happened to me this past autumn when I met and drank with the man who wrote the songs that filled my adolescent mind. As a teenager, I used to ride my bike 20 miles to buy this man's records, and now he works as a civil servant in London. And this past summer, we sat across from each other at an outdoor picnic table in the city, drinking dark beer and talking about the songs he did write and those he never did. He and his wife even invited me to visit their suburban home to stay overnight if I needed to. I can't remember how I heard of the June Brides. I was 14 and at the time paid very close attention to the music press, especially anything coming out of the UK. I was, in the mid-'80s, easily the most devout Anglophile in the waspy suburbs of Chicago. Somewhere I read a description of the music the June Brides made, and I knew I needed this music. But no record store near me carried the June Brides, or had ever heard of them, so I got on my bike. When my friends and I wanted something like the June Brides, we had to ride our bicycles 22 miles to Eveston, the closest college town, where stood Vintage Vinyl, then and now one of the great record stores of the world. The place wasn't big, but had a great import section, and they kept their records in thick plastic sleeves, which appealed to us because we were geek serious about this. This is ticking all the boxes for me. Yeah. So serious we were, we bought backpacks lined with sturdy cardboard so we could ride the purchases safely home without dents or bendings to the record corners. So serious that we kept our records wrapped doubly in plastic sleeves, and we cleaned the grooves with the softest chamois after each play. Vintage Vinyl then is where I bought my first June Brides record. There ain't news stories. My friends and I all thought the June Brides would take over the world. We rode back to Vintage Vinyl 3 more times to collect their next 3 EPs in the rains, Sunday, Saturday, and this town. And unlike the other bands we nailed before, this band didn't ever disappoint us. They just made gorgeous, very personal, very literate, and messy rock music. They left the rough edges rough, and the unassuming nature of the recordings made the song so human and fragile. They sounded as if they'd been recorded drunkenly in a living room lined with books. And the horns, the viola. No one has ever used either any better. No band meant more to me for a long while. So forever I waited for a full-length album and a tour, but none were forthcoming. And pretty soon that was that. This past summer, through an uninteresting chain of events, I found myself in contact with Phil Wilson, the singer-songwriter behind the June Brides, and we were plans to meet the next time I was in London. And then, impossibly, that day actually came. He was there, and he was dressed in a dark, immaculate suit, and he was accompanied by his wife, Pam, also a civil servant. I had come with a head full of indignation about how we treat our rock and roll songwriters, and I advanced my theory to Phil and Pam that sunny summer day. The theory posits that we are hopelessly conflicted and confused about what we want from musicians we love. We embrace their first albums and we say, finally, someone has said it all. And then the second album comes out and we say, not as good as the first. I hated that duet with that other person. By the third album, we're highly skeptical. I do not have time for this. I've also discovered a new band, and this band has described with a cartographer's accuracy the topography of my soul. We do not, on the whole, have a good deal of patience for songwriters who continue to write songs, and we have even less patience, oddly enough, with those who continue to do so with some success. I got a head of steam going through this, and Phil watched me with amusement, but I finished demonstrating my utter lack of understanding of the music business, and he smiled. He'd said long ago, written and recorded all the songs we planned to. I was dumbfounded. Really? Yes, he said. After that last record, he simply felt he was finished. Were there occasional feelings he had a few songs left in it? Sure, he said, and named a few very personal, harrowing memories that he thought would make interesting fodder for a song or two. But those few unwritten songs didn't seem to be eating him up. Did I want another beer? He asked. He was buying. There is a very misunderstood and anyway completely untrue line in The Great Gatsby that says there are no second acts in American life. No less accurate thing has ever been uttered, of course, for America has always been a place where personal resurrection is not just possible, but ubiquitous, almost obligatory. The second life of Phil Wilson as a member of Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs Department, working on tax policy, he's busy and is content, but is always happy to hear about those who bought records way back, and about the many musicians, Bell and Sebastian and Manor Street Preachers among them, who have been influenced by his songs. I told him my bicycle story, and he liked that too. After 2 beers, it was time to go. He and Pam were catching a train home. Lovely place, he said. We have a garden. So on January the 23rd, 2009, Phil Wilson, Simon Beasley, John Hunter, and Frank Sweeney reformed the June Brides for a one-off show at the Others, Stoke Newington, London. And then 3 years later, in June 2012, the band reformed properly and released its first new single in 23 years, followed by another single in 2014. And I gather they're still sort of playing live to this day.
Yeah, that's really cool. That anecdote, while, you know, I know that took up a beat of this episode, was absolutely worth it. And what a great story that is. You know what I mean, we could laugh at that, but you and I both know we would kill to have an experience like that with whoever it is, your Black Francis, you know what I mean? It would be, God, to be in those shoes or to have that opportunity would be amazing. That's really awesome that he got to have his moment, the person who authored that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and he sort of summed up the sort of geekiness and preciousness as well, the sort of ownership you have of a band that isn't yours and music that isn't yours, but, you know, and you decide, yeah, this is really good, you know, and I say this a lot, first album sort of, you know, syndrome. So it's really funny that somebody else has written that in an article.
Yeah. I believe me, I was smiling as you were reading it, kind of like,
That's why I included it, yeah. So there you go, a little insight into the June Brides there. I just thought it's a lovely little snippet of a song and a nice little snippet of insight from Dave Eggers. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Good stuff, man.
Cool.
I appreciate it.
I shall wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this, Andy.
Thank you.
Folks out there, please hit the like button if you do like this and drop some comments. Tell us what you think of this song, of the June Brides, all that classic 80s indie pop stuff, you know. I think many of the people who were who watch this channel and have regular comments are probably this is in their wheelhouse. So yeah, tell us what you think. Love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We really appreciate everybody to support the channel. So jump on your bicycle, make sure you attach clackers, and ride on into the safe domain of the Audiophiles. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.